now the podcast starts.
Hello, listener, and welcome back to the podcast on which we talk about horror. Sometimes we talk about other things, and sometimes we swear. I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by the university film lecturer, Dr. Stella Gaynor. Hello, Stella.
Hey, Dan. You okay?
I'm absolutely great. Thank you so much. And indeed, I am Dan, also known as TD Velasquez, and I write about films and stuff that enthuses me. And indeed, that's why we do this show, because horror is what makes our heartbeats faster. And as I recently said to a university seminar, for some reason, it makes me feel young, which I feel is increasingly important as I crawl up my 40s. Yes. Anyway, Stella, how are you?
I'm all right. I've not actually got any news since we last spoke. When was that? Last week? I can't remember. Nothing has happened in the last however long it's been.
Well, I mean, for the listener, it might be even longer.
Might be even longer.
When we're going to release this. As we're recording it, we're in the run-up to the coronation. If anybody wants to date us. So my mum came home from daycare today with a crown, a cardboard crown that they'd given her. And I hope that every participant in that daycare centre was given one, because you've got to be fair. But I think it suited my mum especially well. But yeah, so that's where we are. Nice. We're almost having a new monarch crowned. And just to link it back to the sort of thing we normally talk about, it's also been, I don't know if you found this, Stella, but today in Oldham, it's been terribly windy.
Yes,
it's been
wild.
Like omen levels of terrifying wind.
Yeah.
And frankly, I blame King Charles. Either he has summoned the wind through dark magic because his ascension to evil power is near, or some evil forces that are ranged against him are furious that we're having another monarch crowned. So I don't know, but either way, it doesn't bode well.
No, it's been pretty wild here today as well, and the weather's supposed to be shit for the weekend, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Right.
I've heard. I don't know. I'm just trying to avoid it, really. It's not really my
well, good luck avoiding it.
I know. Well, that's the thing. Like, what we're going to do, like, as Owen's working on Saturday when it actually is, my kids going out with their friends. So I don't know. I have to distract myself somehow. I'll watch something gruesome on Netflix. It'll be fine. But then we get Monday off work, so that's okay. So I'll spend some time with people then, I think. But yeah, because of the nature of Owen's work, he generally gets, when it's bank holiday weekend, that's when he works, because he works in the performing arts, so that's when people want stuff. So when everyone else is off, that's when he's usually working. So, but post-COVID, work is good. Work is definitely good in that area.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, it's been some lean times.
Lean. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, listener, this episode, you are going to hear a podcast which is possibly the last podcast to review Scream 6, which at the time of recording was released about 2 months ago.
I think about 2 months. Yeah, 2 months. All right, we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah. We're just taking our time. Stella and I decided we wanted to talk about it, but it's just taken a while to come together. Took me a while to see the film, so much so that when I eventually saw it, I think there were 3 of us in the screening. I think it was definitely a kind of post the initial buzz of the release.
Yeah, tail end.
I think you saw it a little bit earlier, Stella.
Yeah, I think we did all right for me. I usually never get to see things in the cinema anyway. But I think me and my teen, we saw it I think maybe it had only been out for about 2 weeks, which for me is pretty on the nose, pretty on the button, on the pulse of being there. So I'm going to explain this story now before we get into the film. So, as I mentioned, there I've got a teenager. They turned 14 in April. So when we went to see Scream, they were just 13. So shh, don't tell the cinema. So it was Mother's Day, and it was like, right, what can me and my kid do on Mother's Day that would be a nice bonding experience? And my kid had seen all the Scream films because that's the kind of responsible parent that I am. And I was like, right, what can we do for Mother's Day? I was like, oh, well, we could go and watch Scream 6. We'll go to the cinema, we'll watch Scream 6. I've seen all the other Scream films in the cinema. It is the one franchise that I make sure I go and see in cinema. Right, so come on, Emma, let's go and watch Scream 6 together. And Emma they're quite a sensible young person, I think, really. I don't really know how they've managed that, but it's true. And Emma was like, well, how? Surely it's an 18 certificate. And I was like, well, it is, but, mum's got a plan. And the plan was I bought 2 Scream tickets and I bought Emma a ticket to go and watch Ant-Man and the Wasp. So I was like, well, when we go in, you show the ticket to Ant-Man and the Wasp. I show my Scream ticket. We go in, and once you pass the guy at the top of the stairs looking at your tickets, all the screens, well, it's a free-for-all, isn't it? It can't, after the ticket man, then we're in. So Ian was like, right, we can totally do this. So I said, get your ticket. And then I had a bit of a wobble. I did buy one Scream ticket and one Ant-Man ticket. And then I was like, well, what if Scream is packed? So I'll buy 2 tickets to make sure there's no seat. So we get there, we get to the cinema. I won't tell you what it is in case they send the police round. So we get to the cinema, and Mother's Day is on a Sunday, and we get there for about 11:30. The showing's at midday, or Scream's at midday, and Ant-Man and the Wasp isn't until like half an hour after it. So we get there really early because I'm a perpetually early person, and we were like, right, just that casual, it will be fine. No one will notice that I'm taking you in to see an 18 certificate film, and you're clearly 13. Like, it'll be fine. So we got in, trying to walk casually. When you're trying to like act normal and you look like the most shifty person that's ever been. So we show our tickets. There's no one else there at the cinema. There's no one in the popcorn queue. Like, they've barely finished cleaning the place before me and him were rocking up on our mission to watch this 18 certificate film. So we buy some popcorn ages before Ant-Man and the Wasp starts, and about 25 minutes before Scream starts. So me and him sit on this bench in the cinema, again, acting casual. And the guys who are doing the tickets at the top of the stairs keep looking at us and clearly see what we're up to. And it was like, no, we're just sitting here on a bench in the cinema. And then the 2 guys on the ticket thing, they wander off. And I was like, right, now, go. Ran into the Scream screen. And we get in there, and the lights are still up. Like, it's still the advert. So it's like, well, and we go in the theatre, and there's maybe like 4 other people in there because it's Sunday morning. I didn't think this through at all. But 4 other people in there. So we sit down, the lights are blazing in there. So if anyone just like stuck their head in, they could clearly see this child sat in the middle. So we just sat there going, come on, put the lights down. And we sat there for about 10 minutes watching adverts, and then put the lights down. It's like, right, okay, we're all right now. Watch the trailers, watch the film. Really enjoyed the film that we'll get to in a second. And you all know this from going to the cinema. When the film's about 10 minutes to go, the number of staff whose job it is to clean the theatre will sort of stick their head in, and won't they, and see like, where's the film up to, ready with their bin bags. So this guy sort of sticks his head in, and me and Emma both clock him. And then Emma leans over and goes, how am I going to leave? I was like, well, you've seen it now. Like, you can't erase your brain. So, oh shit, right? So the film ends, the credits roll, the lights come up, and I could see that the guy who's coming in to clean, he's kind of disappeared. I was like, right, come on, go. And you're in the cinema. There's always they're like little corridors, I guess, down either side, and there's like a big banister, and you can't see around it. So I stuck my head around it. I could see the cleaning guy had just left the door to the screen. So me and Ema, there's only one word of how we moved out of the screen. We scuttled down this little ramp, got out the door. The cleaning guy had his back to us. We walked past him. I was like, we're just going to the toilet. Just walk like you're going to the toilet. Act casual. So we walked in the least casual way possible, went to the bathroom, ran in. I was down for a wee. And then we were leaving the cinema together. Ant-Man and the Wasp is still playing because it's a Marvel film that's 18 hours long. And again, we're doing this terrible, just acting casual, shifty scuttle out of the cinema, down all the escalators, like 3 sets of escalators or whatever it is to get out. And it was like running around the cinema like we're in a heist movie. And then we got outside and he was like, yeah, we did it. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. The most anxiety-inducing thing I've ever done. And he was like, that was brilliant. Let's do it again. And I'm like, not likely. Not soon.
Yeah, you had the enhanced experience.
We did. Not only was the film with all of its shocks and jumps and twists and turns, but we had the added real world anxiety of potentially getting booted out of the cinema, which, you know, my kid thought they had the best day, and I was just like, woo.
Yeah, that is awesome. That's an awesome story. You know,
but yeah,
you added a bit
casual
of adventure. I think it's the perfect marriage of experience and movie.
Yeah,
just that kind of pumping adrenaline.
Well, they've announced Scream 7, haven't they? They're going to do it. So is that right? Well, we'll go again, but I will manage it better and go when the cinema is a little bit busier. So it's not just me and Ema sat on a bench and the ticket guys and some cleaners.
Oh wow! Funnily enough, I've got a corresponding story. The screening that I went to was also slight heart pounding for a different reason, because basically a few weeks ago I went out to the theatre and didn't realise that the theatre kind of screened mobile phone signal, and you know, I'm my mum's carer and I'm supposed to be available on call if there's any issue. And while I was in the theatre last time, basically my mum's alarm went off and I didn't receive it. So It kind of caused big drama when I came out. I was terrified this might happen again when I saw Scream. But because it was the last screening in the day and there's basically no staff around, there was no one I could ask, is the room screen, you know, does it block phone signal? I was pretty sure it didn't, because I'm sure I'd been to the cinema before and received calls. But I was kind of just paranoid about it. So every sort of 20 minutes, I would just step out of the screen. And then at one point, I suddenly thought, why don't I just text a friend of mine and ask them to text me back? And if I get the text, I'll know that there's no blocking of the signal. So I'll be able to relax. So I did that. And my friend Diane Shufflebottom, God bless her, immediately texted back. So I knew that was fine. But that's not the fun story of going to the screening. The fun story is that, again, because of my care responsibilities with my mum, it was actually the night that we recorded the Omen podcast with the two of us and Ian. And basically, we finished recording at about 10 to 9. Scream started at about 10 past 9. And my mum was not in bed yet, but she wanted to come to bed, so and that timed exactly with the end of the podcast. So I basically got off the podcast, threw her in bed, made sure she had a drink, ran downstairs, got in a car, sped into Oldham, went to the cinema, which I will also not name, and I did get there just kind of in time, but I ran up to the cinema and the lights were on, but the doors were closed and wouldn't open. So I just kind of stood there looking in, and it was completely empty inside. And then after a few moments, a member of staff appeared, and I just stood there, and he looked at me and looked a bit sort of curious, and he came down and he manually opened the door, and I said, are you open or closed? And he said, no, we're open. So he let me in. But the thing is, the Scream screening was the last film of the day.
Yeah.
So and their audience had already gone in it. So they shut down the box office. They'd even shut down
Right.
the self-service ticket machines. And for some reason, they'd locked the front door of the building. I was like, that's maybe not too wise, because there were other films going on. So there would have been people in the building, but presumably would have been unable to escape in the event of a fire. Or maybe, anyway.
Well, how did you pay for your ticket?
Well, this is the cool bit. So basically, he tried to get the box office to process me, but they just shut down. So the guy at the box office who was sweeping up just kind of said, "Oh, just use the ticket machines," but they're all switched off. So the guy had to literally plug it in and start
wind it up.
and he went, it'll just take a couple of minutes to boot up, and the film was due to start in like 5 minutes. And I said, well, is this gonna work in time? Because I really want to see the beginning of the film. I'd probably rather not see the film if I miss the beginning, knowing what Scream films are like.
The beginning's always a joy, isn't it?
Yeah. So and we stood there for like a tense, not further minute. Well, basically this circle went round and round on the front of the machine, and it didn't show any signs of coming to life. And I said, "Oh, sorry, I couldn't be here any earlier. It's just that I'm a carer, you see, and I can't really come out before my mum falls asleep." So that must have touched his heart, because he thought about it for a few seconds and then went, "You know what, mate? The screen's just there. Just go in." So I don't went, "Seriously?" He went, "Just go in, mate.
Go in."
So I just went in, and me and 2 other people watched Scream 6. And I paid nothing for the privilege. God bless those members of staff.
I bought 2 tickets to Scream and 1 ticket for Ant-Man and the Wasp. So there's an extra cinema ticket going around there somewhere, so you can have that one.
Oh, bless
so
you.
It all works out in the end.
Yeah, it all balances. So gosh, we both went through some interesting strife to see Scream 6, and therefore we've both maintained our record of seeing every single Scream film in the cinema. And it doesn't matter if they ever go really bad or whatever. Spoilers for the review, I guess. I enjoyed it too. I've always enjoyed the new Scream film, whichever one it was. I think I'd probably still go and see every one just to keep up that record. So if they are doing Scream 7, I'll be there.
Yep.
It was kind of a shame to see it on my own with almost no other audience, because when we went to see Scream 2 in 98, obviously Scream was a massive hit. We were just the right age. And I saw a double bill of Scream and Scream 2, which was absolutely packed out. Had people wearing ghost faces,
perfect
stuff like that. It was just it's exactly what you wanted. Whereas this time it was me and 2 other people
at 10 o'clock at night.
Oh well. So let's get on to the movie then.
Yes.
So obviously, as we said, it has been out for a few weeks. We are going to go into spoilers, but we'll try and talk spoiler free for 10 minutes, just in case people haven't seen it yet.
I had this secret. There's a darkness inside of me. It followed me here. And it's gonna keep coming for us. We share a certain history. This isn't like any other ghost face. What is this place? A shrine. We've got to lure him in. We execute him. Hello?
Let's play a game.
You know you're like the 10th guy to try this, right? It never works out for the dipshit in the mask.
Maybe. But there's never been one like me, Gale. I'm something different.
That's why I'm gonna shoot you in the head. You want me. So let's finish this.
Just to sum up the plot, and basically, this is the first Scream movie not to centre around the character of Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell. I'm sure we'll talk about that. Instead, the lead character is Sam Carpenter, played by Melissa Barrera. She was sort of the lead in the previous Scream film, which we discussed last year, which was confusingly titled Scream.
Yeah.
But we will refer to as Scream 5.
Yeah,
I guess,
just to save it.
Yeah. Yes. She was basically a person who was involved in a new spate of ghost face killings in the town of Woodsboro, which is the town that the original Scream films are mostly set in. Certainly the first one is. And in Scream 6, she and her younger sister, Tara, played by Jenna Ortega, and their friends, is it Mindy?
Mindy.
Played by Jasmine Savoy Brown, and then her twin brother, Chad, played by an actor called Mason Gooding, who I've just found out is Cuba Gooding Jr.'s son. I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
So, they couldn't. They had to come up with a different name for him. They couldn't call him Cuba because then he'd be Cuba Gooding Jr. Jr.
No,
that would just be no good. So good call there.
Hang on, wouldn't it be Cuba Gooding the third?
Or maybe it would be the third.
Right.
Yeah.
We're back to Kings, aren't we? There
Well, yes. He's awaiting his coronation. So yeah, basically those four characters in Scream 6 have now moved to New York, where they're all at university. So this is the first Scream film with a big city setting. It's not the first Scream film with a university setting, because that was Scream 2, which I think we're going to talk a lot about because there are a lot of similarities. And essentially another spate of Ghostface murders begins in the city, which are focused on Sam and people she knows, but seem to be linked to her past in a mysterious way that isn't clear at first. And there are a number of new characters who are suspect as to who might be the killer. And also Gail Weathers, Courtney Cox's reporter from the previous 5 films, does turn up, investigating and generally making trouble with regard to the new case. And there's even a bit where she is doing a press conference, and it's almost a deliberate repeat of the scene in the first Scream film, where she kind of pesters Sidney coming out of a police station. And Sidney punches her, and this time it's Tara and Sam who are doing the same thing, and again Gail is harassing them. But the detail that really pleased me was that in that scene in Scream 6, they have got the Trouble in Woodsboro music, the kind of main theme from the first 4 Scream films by Margot Beltrami, that I do remember we mentioned. It's kind of was weird that music was not in Scream 5.
Yeah.
Now they've got it back, so that was just a nice touch.
I enjoyed that too.
So so that's the setup, and it's basically a Scream film. There are twists, there are unveilings. There's the return of Hayden Panettiere as a character who was pretty definitely dead in Scream 4, as I remember. Well,
he was stabbed once in the stomach.
Well, I haven't revisited the film since it came out, but people say that at the end you kind of see all the survivors, like obviously the main 3, and her character is notably not there, and nobody says, "Oh, Kirby's in the hospital, she'll be all right," or whatever, which is what we hear a lot of in this movie.
Yeah, well, she's stabbed once in the stomach, and we see her hit the deck. And then the young male who's one of the killers in Scream 4, whose name escapes me, he sort of gets out of his chair. So he's pretending to be strapped in the chair, and then he runs off to carry on a killing, I suppose. And we just see Kirby on the ground, I mean, she doesn't look good, but
Right.
we don't see that sort of final, for
Yeah.
audio medium, people can't see me doing a death face. We don't see that final moment of, they've expired. So yeah, maybe, I guess you could argue, I'm sure Ian would argue, that it's you could possibly point to that as perhaps being a bit of lazy writing to just say, well, we never saw her die, so let's bring her back.
Well, it's not, maybe not lazy writing, but it's certainly exploiting a loophole, if you
Yes.
like.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was
I'm
good
glad
to
they
see her, though.
did.
I liked her character.
No,
Yeah.
she's great. So yeah, let's just, in a spoiler-free way for a few minutes, just talk about how much we enjoyed it or didn't. What did you think then, Stella?
I loved it.
Right. Wow, that's nice.
So I've got various things about it that I did really, really like. And without really talking about spoilers, I won't get to that yet. But I did really enjoy the main thing that stood out from it for me was they always had to do it, and it was always what they were going to do. We're still in a family drama. It's still got all those soapy elements of revenge and long lost family members and all that kind of thing that Scream has always done. And I think it's nice to take it off into a new direction with new family problems while still having the links, back to Billy Loomis and stuff like that. So I think that's been well sort of mapped out where they've gone with it. And when on the way back from watching the film, when I was on the tram on the way home, me and Emma came back from the film and we got on the tram, and the tram that we get goes past Old Trafford, so we frequently get caught in football traffic, and we did on the way back from Scream. So we got on a very, very packed tram back from the film.
Just like the scene from
just
the film.
like the sequence in the subway. So we're on the tram, like nose to armpit with everybody else, like you are when we're going past Old Trafford. And I was sort of side-eyeing Emma and being like, does this remind you of anything? Because I think that subway sequence is fantastic. It
is.
Plays wonderfully with the claustrophobic space, with the way that sort of classic way that the lights flicker on and off under the New York subways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you've got Ghostface moving through the carriage and the light going off, and then it comes back on and he's a bit closer, but you don't see him or her or them, whoever, don't see them move. And I thought because Scream films, I think generally, certainly for me, they're never frightening. I don't think I never find them creepy or spooky or anything like that. It's all about the jumps and the slasher kills and the set piece kills. But
they're like suspense films, basically, aren't they?
Almost thrillers, I guess. And I found the sequence on the subway genuinely creepy, which I think I've not felt in a Scream film before. It's been like, oh, that is really spooky. The way they say with the light and the claustrophobic feel, and then the fun of getting on a packed tram afterwards and going, huh. A little bit of
that I've always enjoyed about the Scream films. Somehow there's something extra immersive about it because they are about film fans essentially, and we are obviously film fans watching them. So our lives are already a bit like Scream films, but the movies have the additional excitement of the thriller plot and the violence. The inverse of that is probably why I never quite got into Dawson's Creek, which is, of course, written by Kevin Williamson, who created Scream, because I just thought, this is like my life, but nobody's getting killed. I want to see people get killed. I already live in my life. It's so, and also, I suppose, the enhanced appeal of these movies as we get older, which of course we constantly talk about, is that it makes me remember that kind of milieu of college and university and those scenes on the campus at the start where they're in the frat parties and things, just kind of bringing back various memories.
Definitely.
And it's weird that this single franchise is now multi-generational, and when the first movies happened, we were that age.
Yeah.
And it was kind of depicting our lives in a way. And now it's a nostalgia element for us, but also it's kind of appealing to people who are that age now. And I guess successfully doing so, because otherwise it wouldn't make the money that it
wouldn't
made. They wouldn't be doing Scream 7. Yes, before we go into spoilers, then I'll just say, I pretty much loved it. I thought it was really entertaining with brilliant set pieces.
Yeah.
So you've got I mean, it was ridiculous. A lot of the Scream films are kind of silly.
Yeah.
And with the plot twists on plot twists and things, and the incredibly violent, almost death, well, not death scenes, the incredibly violent attack scenes that people somehow survive often. But the set pieces were great. The subway one, as you've mentioned, the one with the ladder.
The ladder.
And I think the overall kind of entertaining plot plus the set pieces means that I might suggest it's the best Scream film since 2.
Yeah. I think so. I think, I don't know, me and my kid have been sort of shuffling the order of Scream films between us ever since, like before and after we saw it. We had a definite order of what's your favourite, and then afterwards it's like, well, that's changed now, hasn't it? And when I've talked about this to other people as well, I feel like Scream 4 is often quite overlooked. It's definitely worth another look. I did watch it again in preparation for 5.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching that again.
And I guess we all know what we think about Scream 3, but Scream. I think Scream 4 is definitely worth another look, and I think it's quite hard to like the first 3 films. So it feels a bit like the franchise has got 3 parts. You've got like Scream 1 to 3, and Scream 4 in the middle, then 5 and 6. And I think it's. Where was I going with that point? It's quite. They're quite, because like you said, it's got its multi-generational aspect to it. You can shuffle around the first 3 films and like, well, yeah, there was Scream, but Scream 2 is probably the better film. And then Scream 3, well, maybe let's just not talk about it. But then Scream 4 sits in the middle, and then I think it's got lost a little bit because Scream 5 and 6 have had more of a hoo-ha around them, new cast and new story and new rules and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like Scream 4 is like, come back.
Yeah, I remember there being discussions or rumors when Scream 4 was made that it was hoped that would kick off a new trilogy.
Yeah, and it didn't, did it? It just sort of sits there on its own. Yeah.
Was obviously Scream 2022, Scream 5 had the same intention and succeeded. So it's kind of kickstarted a new phase. And the fact that this is the first time since 98 when we've had a new Scream film just a year after the previous one.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they're going to keep up that
I hope so.
that energy of presentation.
Just go to a different cinema this time.
Well, yeah.
We'll go in disguise. It'll be fine.
Oh, you know what? Just buy a really long coat and one of you stand on the other shoulder.
Classic.
That worked for Beaker at the Muppets, I think, in Muppets from Space, which is a David Arquette movie. So that's the link.
Nice link.
And so yeah, I really enjoyed Scream 6. I thought it was funny. I thought it was surprising. I thought it was kind of ridiculous and implausible, probably, but that's
okay.
Matter. It's fine. That's
what we're there for.
All of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It had, and it had all the things that you kind of expect from a Scream movie. I think if you've never seen a Scream movie, this is not the one to start with.
No.
And you might not enjoy it if you're not familiar with the conventions. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. So, is there anything else you'd like to say before we go into spoilers, then, Star?
Before we get into spoilers, I think I'd just highlight the one. It's not even a thing I think's wrong with it. It's the thing that I came out of the cinema thinking, I wish there'd been more. I wish there'd been more of New York. because
Okay.
loads of the promotional material was like, Ghostface in New York, and all that stuff. And yeah, we get the subway scene, but apart from like the first sort of like panning shot into the city, I feel like New York is such an incredible backdrop to anything. It's a beautiful looking city. I think I felt like they could have done more with the city of New York, and all we had was the subway. And any other times, it was like, well, they could be anywhere.
Well, there was the Central Park bit.
There's a bit in Central Park. Yeah.
Admittedly, I can't remember clearly, but it might be filmed in such a way that it could just be any park.
Yeah.
And
so I don't know. I felt there could have been more. Could have Ghostface, chased them up all around the Statue of Liberty, or I felt like there could have been some more of New York, because it was like, oh, New York, it's going to look beautiful on screen, and it's like, but we're not seeing it. And so I came away going, I wish I'd seen the city more, because I felt that's where what they were going for a little bit with the promotion was Ghostface in New York, and it's like, well, where's New York in this? But that's the only thing, and that's just because I feel like New York's great to look at.
I mean, of course, it is a low budget production, and they didn't actually shoot it in New York, apart from a couple of bits. But I think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a great New York movie, and that wasn't made in New York. You can do it. You can get the atmosphere, and I do think they got the atmosphere. But like I say, like you said, they could have just kind of exploited it a bit more specifically. And I think maybe only the subway bit and the bit in the department store, not department store, the bit, the kind of the attack scene that happened in a corner shop kind of thing.
Yeah,
it could have been a shop anywhere, but it's just that sort of scene felt like New York. It felt like a crime movie from the 70s kind of thing.
Like that kind of corner shop and people creeping around on the floor, while something terrible is going on. Put me in mind of Cloverfield. When they end up in a store at one point in there, like running around and trying not to get eaten by whatever it is in Cloverfield. We never quite found out, do we? But yeah,
it's off-brand Godzilla.
That's it.
Yeah.
All right then. Spoilers.
Well, before there's one last thing I thought to ask you that I'd like to ask you before we go into spoilers, which is just that the listener might know, even if they haven't seen this film, but they've heard our previous podcast on the previous film, that you weren't too hot on Melissa Barrera as Sam in the previous movie. Did you warm up to her a bit in this?
Yes, I was talking about this on our way back from the cinema. I felt like she's really sort of settled into the character a lot more, and it seemed to sit on her shoulders a lot better. Like, I mean, I can't imagine how difficult it would be to be like, right, you're going to be final girl in the new Scream film. What? It's quite the big ask, I think, particularly when you are doing scenes with Sydney and Gale in Scream 5. It's big shoes to step into, I think. But yeah, certainly Sam, and maybe it's because of the way that the character arc went in Scream 5, when we find out about Billy and we see that she rises to the occasion and viciously stabs someone to death, and it's like, good for her. So I think her performance, I felt, was a lot more relaxed, is the only word that I can think of. Well, it's clearly not a relaxing situation for the character, but I felt like the actor feels like she's warmed up into playing this, this final girl that has slightly psychotic tendencies, perhaps.
Yeah, well, I think maybe it's two things. It's the fact that Neve Campbell isn't there.
Yeah, that's got to help.
As much as we miss her, but it kind of allows Melissa Barrera to take the movie by the horns, if you know what I mean. And also in the storyline, everybody's kind of getting at Sam because of what happened in the previous film. So it's almost like the character has a right to be a bit frustrated and lashing out and setting her boundaries. Yeah,
and to be a bit spiky.
Yeah, she has to command other characters. So I think those two things work together well. Yeah, I mean, I thought she was good. I think the kind of the teaming of her and Jenna Ortega as Tara is really effective, and the way they work together on screen is fantastic.
Yeah.
So I will say I suppose it can be said non-spoilery that I did really like the movie, but I also feel like it's slightly disposable. Sounds really bad. That was the word I was reaching for. Just because the first 5 films are really all about Sydney, and yeah, the 5th one brings in Tara and Sam, but Sydney is kind of the linking material, and that story finished with 5. And a good thing about this film is that it doesn't unfinish that story. It doesn't say Sydney died on her way to her home planet or something like that. You know, she's not dismissed. She's just not in the movie. So I feel like that storyline is completed, and this movie is just kind of a separate thing. But it's a really good sequel to the last film.
Yeah.
And if there is going to be a Scream 7, then that will be a really nice trilogy.
Yeah, I think so. I liked how they dealt with Gail not being there. It was just one line from Gail, dealt with Sydney not being there, and it was a line that Gail said, and she said something like, I can't remember how it came up. Somebody's asking about Sydney, and Gail says something like, she deserves a happy ending. Like she's not coming to New York. She deserves a happy ending. And I thought, because I was like, oh, Sydney's going to be in it, and it's like, well, actually, no, that character probably does deserve to be left alone. Like let that character have her happy ending, or well, she's not going to have a happy ending. She's clearly traumatized. But it's. I think it made a good point of saying that it's okay. The character's okay. Let her be okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think that if you are going to bring that character back every time, there's only 2 things. There are 2 options, and they're both bad. One of them is that she always survives to the end, which becomes predictable, and
we've seen it.
Already has become predictable. The other one is eventually she's going to die, and it's probably not going to be great,
and we don't want to see that.
Be disappointing. We don't want to see it, so therefore just don't have her in it. And that is a point to go into spoilers, I think, because we're teetering on talking about whether or not people die or don't. So
spoiler alert.
So everybody who's not seen the film, turn off the podcast now, go and watch the movie. You'll have a good time.
You can watch it on Paramount Plus. There you go.
Oh yes, of course.
Yeah, it's available to stream now on Paramount Plus.
All right, okay. Link in the show notes. Go straight there. Okay, so Stella, what's your first spoilery thought then?
All right, well, we've got to talk about the first kill, haven't we? I think so. Before you said something about that the first Scream film was being made for us being able to see ourselves in the films.
Oh, I know.
And it was like, oh, for God's sake! And then the first victim is a university film lecturer, and I'm like, so my kids sat next to me in the cinema, and they're just like, that's you, that is. And I was like, I'm feeling quite attacked here. And Ghostface says to her on the phone, I wrote the line down because I went and found it on the trailer. He says, I'm not going to attempt to do the voice, or am I? You teach a class about slashers and you still walked into a dark alley alone. And I was like, oh. So all the bluff that I've got is, I watched loads of horrors. I'd survived to the end, and it's like, well, clearly you wouldn't, would you? Right there on the screen. So it's like, could it be any more for and about me? So for God's sake.
And also, it means that the movie gets to the high pitch of meta film commentary like
straight away
in the first minute.
So it was
right there, and then you have the following scene, which culminates in the line, "Who gives a fuck about movies?" I think it's like shifting the focus quite dramatically, but it gets all that kind of meta comment in there. And also, I think Samara Weaving is great.
She's very good.
She was the lead in Ready or Not, which I love to bits. And Henry Journey was in that movie as well. Obviously, it's the same directors as this film, Radio Silence Bear. So they're bringing all their friends back, and who wouldn't?
Why wouldn't you? Exactly.
So, but we get to see Samara Weaving die, which is a shame. But
but she does walk into an alley on her own.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
And you've got to have a certain cachet to be the opening kill in a Scream film.
That's quite something, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. I mean, the price of it is that you die and you won't be in the rest of the movie. But on the other hand, you've got to be cool anyway, and nearly all of them are. I mean, it's been so long since I've seen Scream 4, but isn't one of the open? I know the Scream 4 has a kind of tricksy opening where there's loads of different kills, but isn't one of the people Kristen Bell?
One's Kristen Bell, and one is Anna Paquin.
Yes,
she gets a knife to the belly as well. But yeah, Scream 4 does the film within a film within a film within a film thing at the start, which is very good. So, if we've talked about the first kill, we should talk about the second with the fake out killers.
Yes,
we've got a set of killers who get killed.
Yes, so that is the first moment in the movie where you go, "Whoa, okay," which is after Samara Weaving is dead, but then the killer takes off his mask and reveals himself to be Tony Revolori, Flash Thompson from the Spider-Man films. Except
who'd have thunk it?
a mad Giallo obsessive nutcase killer, film studies undergrad guy.
Yeah, we all know what they're like.
Indeed. Well, yeah. You got to watch your back, Stella.
Really do.
And we follow him to his kind of grotty serial killer's flat, which I suppose is not especially grotty. It's not really more grotty than any student accommodation, really. But then we have another scene where he's actually taken out by the real ghost face of the movie.
What did you think they were doing with that? Because when we see the ghost face take a mask off like willingly, and for a few minutes until it all carries on unfolding, I thought that was going to be, the promotion stuff, but like new movie, new rules, all that kind of stuff. I was like, well, is that the new rule then that we know who it is? Are they going to like flip it? But then no, he dies. I thought that was it, but it wasn't.
I thought it was kind of clever because it was totally surprising and it was thrilling for the few minutes when it happened, but But it didn't last long enough for me to seriously think, where's this going to go? Because my immediate go-to, if you know who the killer is at the start, is Columbo. So I was like, is this going to be Columbo? Is he basically going to spend the whole movie interacting with with Melissa Barrera? They're having barbed conversations. And that would be different. I don't know if that would be quite exciting in the same way that I'd be expecting. So I like the fact that it twisted round again kind of immediately, but it worked for me in that it just made me go, whoa, what I thought I thought they were going to do was something whereby we'd know who one of the killers was.
I guess so.
And in a way that they maybe could have done something like that, where the killer is in Samantha's friend group, and we know he's the killer all the way through, but we also know there's more than one killer.
There's another one, because there's always another one.
There's like tension all the way through, but also the possibility of twists.
Yeah. While we're on that killer, or the killer who isn't the killer that gets killed, we should do a shout out appreciation for the fact that on the wall in his house or flat, grotty apartment, I guess, in New York, there's a last podcast on the left poster. Right. Even podcasts can get so big where their poster is on the wall of the fake killer's apartment in New York. And I saw that in the cinema and I was like, there's a last podcast on the left. And I was very, very pleased for them. So well done, lads, for getting on there. That's amazing.
Nice one. I've never heard that podcast, I should
go. It's one of my favourite things in the whole wide world.
All right, okay.
Go listen. Everyone.
Good recommendation.
But not now. Wait till we're finished.
Yes. But the link will be there in the show notes once you have finished listening. Awesome. I missed that detail. That's great. I don't want to kind of go through the whole movie kind of death by death.
No.
I do think it was a bit weird in this film that it was really gory and violent, probably more so than any of the previous Scream movies, but also so few of the deaths were actually deaths. And it doesn't matter while you're watching it, because the movie is very entertaining and the characters are engaging. And I was glad that people who I liked were not dead in the end. But just kind of looking back on it, it's like, so he died but didn't die, and she died but didn't die. And she died, and there's just loads. I think there's at least 4. It's kind of harder to remember the characters who stayed dead. The one who fell off the ladder, was definitely dead, wasn't she? She kind of smashed her head up in.
Yeah, that was game over. That wasn't it? Wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But so we've got Quinn, who turns out to be one of the killers.
Yeah,
gets stabbed in that sequence. Doesn't Kirby get shot in the final?
She turns up and she's covered in blood. She looks like she's been done over.
Yeah,
certainly. I don't know exactly how.
Can't remember if she gets shot or not. Anyway, but yeah, there's lots of returnees from being attacked by Ghostface or pretending to be attacked by Ghostface.
And like Mason Gooding gets stabbed by 2 different killers at once several times in each side of his body and somehow survives. And although I loved all the characters, so I was glad that they didn't die, I do slightly miss that horror in Scream 2 that Randy, who you love from the previous movie,
Randy
is horribly taken away from us savagely. And they never went back on that. Yeah, they brought him back in Scream 3 as a video that he made before he died, but they didn't say, "Oh, he's actually alive."
But they did the shot where you see him.
That's true. They couldn't get out of it really.
No.
They left themselves no wiggle room there, and maybe if they had done, presumably Jamie Kennedy wishes they had done.
I know, he must be gutted now. Hey, no pun intended. Sorry.
What was the other thing that I just wanted to say? Oh yeah, I'll tell you what I really liked. I was really glad about in terms of characters who died and didn't die. Gail dies and doesn't die.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure which order preferred. I thought it was a good scene, but it's clearly supposed to be a death scene. She has a last line, which has got the death line written all over it when she says, "Tell Sydney he didn't get me."
He didn't get me, yeah.
But then at the end, they drop a line just like, "Gail's recovering in hospital. She'll be fine." And it's like, oh, so she'll be back. But I was just relieved that she made it that far into the movie. Because I was half suspecting she would be killed at the start.
Yeah, that she'd be first killed. Yeah.
And that is one of my least favorite horror cliches, when the sequel begins with the death of the survivor.
The last one, yeah.
And I really didn't like it in Scream 3 when they did that at the start with Cotton.
Yeah. How do I feel about that? I think it was interesting watching that sequence in Scream 3 with Cotton's death, watching it with Ema, because we'd watched all the films pretty much in a row over a number of weeks, and I've had the pleasure of doing that thing where you're rewatching something that you've seen a million times and you know it all really well, and you get to watch it through somebody else's fresh eyes and seeing them going, what, him? No. So I think maybe because I got to see somebody else again go through that. Oh my God! No way, they can't kill him. Being like, yeah, they are. Good, isn't it? So it's like, yeah, maybe it's a bit of a cheap shot. But then, did we really care that much about Cotton?
I suppose we didn't really care. What I liked about him was the additional level of danger that he brought to Scream 2.
Yeah,
because he was a credible possible killer.
Yeah,
but thriller killer. Sorry. But then obviously we learn that he's not the killer, and
No.
and we sort of love him because of that. And at the end of the film, and he couldn't fulfill that role again in Scream 3 because we already know he's not the killer. But yeah, I mean, bring him back and kill him immediately. Just don't do it right at the start of the movie. Do something a bit different. For me, he could have been like the Randy character who helps you get settled in, but then is removed. And because Cotton had a kind of aura of being able to handle himself, possibly killing him would kind of increase the stakes. It's like because he'd be like a comforting character, and suddenly he's gone. But whereas when you get rid of him at the start before you've even introduced any other characters or brought anyone else back, it just makes it like a pointless little movie.
Yeah, he's a big screen presence as well, isn't he? He's a big guy as well. He's the actor's quite a big guy, so yeah, he fills the screen. So yeah, taking him out was a bit. Yeah, you're right, but I did enjoy watching Ema's face. Like, oh my god.
Well, no. I mean, to be fair, there are 6 Scream films, and they only do that once.
Yeah.
And if you're going to do it, if you're going to do a parody of slashers or a series that comments on the structure of slashers, you probably do need to do that at some point.
Tick that box.
Yeah. I remember finding it disappointing at the time. So I was really pleased that didn't happen with Gail, because when I heard the rumor that Gail was being the opening kill, I thought, this is why Neve Campbell's not in it, because in the original script it was Sydney who was the opening kill, and she said, "F off,
not doing it."
But Courtney Cox was like, "Hey, money." And
I'm sure that's exactly how she sounds as well.
And that would have really depressed me. So I'm just really pleased they didn't do that.
Yeah.
And there's no hint. I'm sure that every time they make a new one, there will be some executive somewhere going, "Can we get Neve back? Can we get Courtney back?" Even if it makes no sense, even if it doesn't add to the story or anything, but we might make some more money if we can put their name on the poster. Can we get them back? But for this one, they resisted doing anything distasteful. Neve's not in it, but as you said, they explained her absence really gracefully.
Yeah, I think it was very gracefully and tastefully done. But I think with the Jenna Ortega, certainly with her, what she's done with Wednesday on Netflix. Right. So, 2022, she had a fantastic year because she had Scream 5 in January, and then Wednesday arrived on Netflix later in the year. And I think she's carving out quite a nice little horror niche for herself. And I think that's working quite well, as to have her name on to have her on the Scream 6 poster, I think is not carrying the same amount of clout as, Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox, but I don't think she's far off, not certainly after the year that she's had. And everyone's in love with her, and, everyone's doing the Wednesday dance on TikTok, so that I think that actor has clout. And, I hope that as we continue going to Scream 7, that, we'll get Jenna Ortega and the one who plays Sam, whose name I've forgotten, and their faces are front and center on it. I think, good. I think for that.
Jenna Ortega is undoubtedly going to be, assuming she's in part 7, she will be more emphasized in posters and everything. Where she is at the moment, it kind of reminds me of how Scream 2 had Sarah Michelle Gellar in it.
Yeah.
She's not in a huge part of the movie, but she just started Buffy. Everybody knew who she was. She'd done I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Yeah.
And
her death sequence is brilliant, isn't it?
It is. It's great. And I've always remembered that phrase, sober sister.
Sober sister, yeah. Drink with your brain.
When she answers the phone and says, "I'm sober sister." They're all going out and having fun, but I've got to look after the house. And I thought, that's me. I'm sober sister.
I'm going to change your name in my phone.
Oh, that would be an honor. Frankly. So yeah, and no, I agree with you in terms of Jenna Ortega, and I also think that even though there is a nice cross-generational thing like dynamic that's developed over the last two films, so that we're touching on the old cast, but we have the new cast as well. I think the basic appeal of the movies is their exploration of the young characters and their relationship, the way that they are relatable to a young audience. So, please, more of that. And if there is a good way that Courtney Cox or Neve Campbell can be brought into that, then do it. But if there isn't, then just leave them be.
Yeah, they don't need to be shoehorned in. Like I think that Sam and Tara, their characters, have sort of settled into their roles. It's great to see Courtney Cox on screen. Of course it is, but I'm not saying that she's not needed. But if Scream 7 doesn't feature Cox, I don't know if she said she has yet. She's going to be in it yet or not. I'm not sure. Then I think it'll be okay. I think the film can carry. Because I think our core four, because we do have a core four, don't we? We've got Sam, Tara, Mindy, and is Chad still alive?
Chad lived, yeah.
Chad made it, didn't he? So we have a four.
He's stabbed, but he's okay.
Yeah. Covered in scars, but he's okay. So we have a core four, and they're all well liked. Mindy is Randy, essentially, isn't she? She's the same character, and I think, Courtney Cox, if you're listening, if you want to have a film off, you can. I give you permission.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I think, and also I believe Courtney Cox is the executive producer of 6, so presumably she will be on 7 as well, even if she's not in the film. Yeah, so whatever happens, she's making money.
Good.
She doesn't.
But Lord knows she needs it.
Probably not, but
probably not. It's probably all right.
Depending on how the divorce went. Yeah, I mean, I would like it if they could, if Gail is alive, if they could work her in a way that's like a tiny cameo, but maintains the status of the character, but doesn't involve her in the film more than, she would need to be. I'm trying to think of a good example of when that's been done. I always thought this is an example of a movie that was never made, but for a long time they were talking about making Ghostbusters 3 when all the actors were still alive, but it never happened because Bill Murray didn't want to do it, which was kind of known at the time. And my answer was always, okay, so just promote Bill Murray's character. He can be running like the Las Vegas branch of Ghostbusters, and we just have one scene where it cuts to him in his jacuzzi at the top of Ghostbusters Tower.
On the strip.
And that's it. And you just go, oh yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That makes sense. So you get to see him, but the rest of the film is about the other characters, and just do something like that.
Yeah.
Because I think if you continue to involve Gail in a major way, you've kind of done everything now. She had the romance arc, the love story arc with Dewey. She's had the death scene, so you can't really do that again without you feeling a bit lame. She's obviously she's won the day several times. She's been part of the survivors. So I don't think there's necessarily much that can be done. So Stella, we've only got a few minutes left. Is there anything else that you feel that you must say in a spoilery way about Scream 6?
I don't think so. I think we've said, like I said, without going through it death by death, which we don't need to do, but just generally as a film, the pacing was good. I didn't feel like it lulled at any point. There's always the chance that you're going to get an unnecessary bit of exposition in the middle, but they didn't do that. They kept everything rattling along quite well. I think it did it ticked a lot of the nostalgia boxes, and you mentioned nostalgia before, particularly when we got the sequence at the end with the shrine to all the other killers and all the, there's loads of costumes there and props, and the TV that killed Stu, and all those things are there, and it was, while the Scream films are always commentary on themselves and on the horror genre and on slashers and on film in general, I felt that this film, like I said, it gets the meta stuff out of the way by dealing with the university professor, but I felt like the rest of it wasn't too, I'm being a film that's been super smart and self-critical. I think they managed to sort of not lean into that as much as they have done with some of the other films, and did a bit more of getting on with, okay, let's just tell this story, and then having all of those props and costumes at the end was just really nice visuals, to see, oh, that's what that person was wearing when they died, there's that, there's the other, there's this, and they could sort of put it into the storytelling in a much more natural way, rather than sometimes, because Scream can be a little bit heavy-handed with, and now we're going to explain the rules of the film to you, and they're always good sequences, like what Mindy in Scream 5, when she's talking about requels, they're really good fun to watch, but I felt that commentary in Scream 6 was sort of tempered down a little bit, which, if the franchise is going to carry on, which hopefully it's going to do, then it needs to shift and it needs to change, and it's that, yes, we know these films are commentaries on things, but probably don't need to beat us around the head with it.
Yeah, because they're going to run out of things to comment upon, because they've kind of got the genre covered.
Yes, like we're in, we're there, we're good. Yeah.
Linking back to something I said earlier on in this recording, it strikes me that although there are a lot of similarities with Scream 2 in this movie, the characters go to college, the sort of the killings that are either in broad daylight or in highly populated places, the kind of the slight emphasis on clever, interesting, unusual, groundbreaking set pieces, like the bit in Scream 2 with the where they're in the crashed car, the cops are dead, and they've got to crawl over the killer. And in this one, we have the bit with the ladder.
The ladder.
The subway. Yeah, the ladder sequence was fantastic. But on the other hand, the resonances with Scream 2 are not kind of emphasized and integral in the same way that Scream 5 had. We're going to go back to Stu Macker's house, and we're going to recreate exact scenes from the original film. Where this movie was just like, it all kind of felt natural, and it didn't take you out of the movie. Yeah, it's afterwards when you think about it, oh, that was quite like Scream 2. But the most way that it felt like Scream 2 to me was that it just moved well. It was thrilling and surprising, and it felt dangerous, even though weirdly it wasn't, because people who died
coming back.
Die.
It's like this one. If we're going to consider 5, 6, and 7, if 7 comes, there's this been another trilogy that Scream 6 has kind of settled down into its groove a little bit, and Scream 5, I'm sure for the writers and producers and everyone involved was like, oh God, please let people like it. There's always a chance with any movie that it's going to tank, but it must be nerve-wracking to be like, right, after all these years of coming back with another Scream film, that's quite a bold move. And I think maybe Scream 6, between the cast, the script, the storytelling, not being beaten over the head with film commentary, all that kind of stuff, just feels like it's settled into its little groove that it's carving out, I think, for this, if it is going to be a trilogy of films. And then we wait 6 more years and we get 8.
Yeah, every decade has its own Scream trilogy.
Yeah.
Quite nice, and why not? So
why not?
A new generation every time. I do wonder what they will title the next film. Is it just going to be Scream 7? Because there is always, with Scream, something meta about this title. So Scream 4 is really Scream. And Scream 5 is obviously Scream, although, as I said last time, they really should have just called it Screams, because then they could have styled the second S as 5. But
Well, it was right there, wasn't it? Yeah.
But equally, the fact that it's just called Scream and it's a requel, that's a meta comment in itself. What I thought they could have done with Scream 6, because A, who cares, and B, everyone can look it up and it's a joke, is they call it Scream 2 again, but this time they use the Roman numerals, so it's Scream II.
Yeah.
Because the original films have numbers. So, in a way, people still not... It will prevent people from getting the films confused. Obviously, it'd be difficult on podcasts because we still say Scream 2 has numerous echoes of Scream 2.
And people will just turn us off.
So, maybe for our sake, it's better that they didn't do that.
Yeah, I'm sure they're listening and taking notes.
But yes, absolutely. They definitely have us on their podcatchers. Sorry, Courtney. About the divorce thing. But yeah, no, I look forward to number 7. I hope it keeps up the standard. I think they've done really well. And in the original trilogy, we were about to hit Scream 3, which didn't go great.
No.
But had loads of...
Oh, you've made me worried now.
Well,
no.
But there were production reasons, like Kevin Williamson not being able to write it and stuff, that kind of led it to not really working. Whereas I don't think those type of things will apply this time, and maybe that they could take the idea of it. I mean, Sam's not a student actor like Sydney was, so she couldn't go to Hollywood. But but they could. Well, I don't care what they do.
We're going to go and see it anyway. We'll try and see it together this time.
And you've pointed out that there's a new direction which is coming, which is quite nice. That the series is kind of naturally evolving, and therefore they should hopefully continue in that direction and not just recreate what the previous trilogy did.
Yeah.
But either way, we'll see it again together. I hope that'll be lovely. And we'll go back and we'll watch all the Scream films, won't we? And podcast about them in future, and then we'll be able to analyze in depth the whole kind of series bit by bit, because all the films after 4 I've only seen once anyway, so it'd be great to kind of to go back and just really appreciate those movies. And I've not watched even the original trilogy, which I did see a lot. I haven't watched for ages, and I'm kind of desperate to. I do quite like Scream 3 in a lot of ways, even. So
it's got good moments, but yeah, I think just in the context of the rest of the films, it's like, it's. I mean, none of it takes itself too seriously, but Scream 3 didn't take itself seriously at all at any point. And it's like, I don't know, maybe it's too... I remember when I first... I don't know, we'll save this for when we actually talk about Scream 3, but I think they maybe lent too much a little bit into comedy.
Yeah. Well, I remember, because I watched it a couple of times, and I remember feeling that it's not exciting or clever, or I do think they're a bit scary, but it's not any of those things that the first 2 films were, but it is kind of charming and funny.
Yeah, it's all right. It does have Carrie Fisher in it.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great cameo.
It's a fantastic cameo.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's probably my favourite bit. Anyway, we'll do that another time.
Yes, we will. That'll be marvellous. All right. Well, Stella, we have talked about Scream 6.
Yes.
Maybe want to watch it again, but I'll do so in context of seeing all the other movies.
All right, you're going to wait and watch them all in a row?
Yes, I think so.
I'm going to get the DVD as soon as it's out, which is soon, I believe. But yeah,
this is probably one of those franchises where, because some of the films were made by different studios, I don't think you can get like a box set of all of them.
No.
But if you could, I would.
Yeah, I don't care. Do you know what you can get? I don't know if it's out yet. You can get a screen board game.
All right.
Yeah, I'm having one of them.
What is that, like Cluedo, but with
I think so, essentially.
basically blood spattered rooms?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
I'm having one of them for my birthday.
You know what? That's awesome.
I'll bring it round and we can play it.
I want to play that game with you. That would be great. Wow. That's great. Oh, lovely. I love the idea of it.
Isn't it good?
Is that a proper licensed product? It's not like a
Yeah.
crowdfunded thing.
It's the license thing. I'll find it and I'll send you the link.
Brilliant, thank you. And listeners, if anybody's interested, we'll put the link on the show notes as well, so you can go hunting for Scream the game. Well, Stella, anyway, this has been an absolute pleasure as always. And
thank you.
I'm thrilled by the enthusiasm which we both felt for this movie, because I half thought maybe you were going to have some interesting criticisms that I wouldn't have thought of, but you've wonderfully bigged it up in my mind, so it's even better, I think, than I thought it was. That's great. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you. And I'm gonna go and see when the DVD's out.
Fantastic. Awesome. Oh yes. Right. Well, thank you for listening, dear listener, and we shall join you again soon with another review of some kind. Who knows what it will be? At the moment, we're just kind of winging it. But thank you very much, and we'll be back with you very soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to And Now the Podcast Starts. Produced and released by Ambidextrous Solutions Limited. Presented by Stella Gaynor and T.D. Velasquez. Special thanks to Greg Hume for our original theme music and to Brian Gorman for our original artwork. All dialogue and music clips from films, TV shows, and trailers are used for the purposes of criticism in the spirit of fair dealing as defined in UK law and fair use as defined in US law. No copyright infringement is intended. Please visit our home on the web, www.andnowpodcast.com, for more content and contact details. Or visit our Facebook pages at AndNowPod or at Lee Cushing Pod. Follow us on Twitter at AndNowPodcast or at Lee Cushing Podcast. If you'd like to donate to us, please visit patreon.com/AndNowPodcast. And now the podcast stops.